All right, for anybody that's using this Russell twist lock hose, fuel hose, which I'm using here for my LS swap, I ran the hose down in the frame and clipped it all in prior to putting the cab back on because it was easier. But then I wasn't sure the exact length and how I was going to match it up here to the fuel rails. So I didn't want to put my fittings on until the very end. So now I got basically this hose here, and I got to put a fitting on it, but I got to do it right here because I can't get over to the vise or whatever. So I'll show you what I made. It's pretty easy if anybody's looking for this. Basically, I just whipped this together. It works really good. I just put this fitting on as a test. So what it is it's a piece of conduit here. I think it's 1/2 inch. So I split it down the middle, and then I just use it as a clamp around the hose. I just clamped it with a pair of just squeeze clamps, and it holds the hose tight enough. Now there's 2 here. The reason that is when I first tried it, I welded this threaded rod on here, and then when I drilled the holes in this piece of angle iron, these pieces of angle iron were a little bit too close together, and it was kind of impinging on this fitting in the middle. So I could have cut these welds and just put a standoff in there, something just to keep this bolt and this bolt a little bit farther apart, so you got a little bit more room here. But what I essentially did is I had this big long piece of 1/2 inch, so I just cut it in half and I just double it up on the inside. So that essentially separated these bolts a little bit. But that's all the deal is with that. So really it's just a 1/2 inch piece. I just clamped the bolts in there, and then I just made a piece of angle iron, 2 1/2 inch holes. I wallowed them out a little with a file just so they weren't, when they kind of walk their way down and they're not even, they don't bind up. And then this is a Russell fitting. It's a 45, and it's 3/8 hole in the middle here. So I just drilled a piece of 3/8 hole in the middle, and then I just come in with an angle grinder and cut a notch. So basically you start it way up here, you get the fitting just in there, and you just, 2 turns on this, 2 turns on this, and you just walk it down, and it just went right in like a dream. And then when you're done, of course, you just take your clamps off, and then your fitting's on. So this was a test. I'm gonna have to melt this off, melt this fitting off, and then put it on the real truck. But it works really good. So there it is. It is basically 1/2 inch conduit. Be careful if you're welding this. It's probably galvanized, and you don't want to breathe that stuff. So grind off what you can and wear a mask. And then, so that's just, that's just 1/2 inch conduit. Threaded rod. You could probably use 3/8 threaded rod or a bolt, whatever you want. I mean, I wanted enough travel here, so the threads on my bolts weren't long enough, so I just went with threaded rod. I had 1/2. You could probably do 3/8. I'm sure that would work. It went in like super easy. I mean, there was virtually no force on it at all. And just a piece of angle iron. And I used angle iron because I thought maybe just a piece of flat steel here, because there's this big notch in there, it would start to flex because it's got a cut right in the middle of it. So I just went with the angle iron because then it stiffens that up basically and keeps it rigid as it pushes in. And then I just started it, and I just took a 3/4 inch socket and just kind of turned 2 turns back and forth, and it just walked this thing on like a piece of cake. So if that helps anybody, there you go.